Welcome to Energy Frontier, the Wyoming Landscape podcast. Hosted by Dr. Holly Krutka, Executive Director of the School of Energy Resources at the University of Wyoming. The show highlights SER's role supporting our mission to promote energy-driven economic development for the state of Wyoming.
Welcome back, listeners, to the University of Wyoming School of Energy Resources podcast, Energy Frontier, the Wyoming Landscape. For this last part of this last episode, I'm your host, Dr. Holly Krutka. We will be transitioning hosting to Dr. Erin Phillips during the course of this episode. We'll be handing that off. So I have been serving as Executive Director of the School of Energy Resources here at the University of Wyoming. I'm moving back to the private sector, so this is my last episode as the podcast host. And before we get started on the episode, I just want to thank all of our listeners. I'm so proud of this podcast and what it's become and given us another way to communicate what's happening here at the School of Energy Resources and across Wyoming and in the energy sector. And so grateful for all of you who've joined us since we launched this about a year and a half ago, and excited to see it keep going forward. And I'm going to be looking forward to tuning in. So the way we're going to do this episode is I'm going to introduce Dr. Phillips, and then she'll be actually interviewing me. So Erin, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Holly.
So tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how you came to work here at SER.
Sure. So I grew up in the Black Hills of South Dakota, and I am a geologist by training. I did my undergraduate work at McAllister College and my master's at New Mexico Tech. Worked for a few years as a geologist at the New Mexico Bureau of Geology and Black Hills State University. And then went back to school for my PhD here at UW under the direction of Ken Sims over in the geology department. When I was finishing up my PhD, I ran into Fred McLaughlin, our director for the Center for Economic Geology Research here at SER. And he said, we need some help with subsurface characterization on one of our CCS projects. So I came over to work at SER in 2017. Have worked for Kager, done a lot of work in the critical minerals space, and am now the director of cross-cutting programs here at SER.
Great. And I don't know if we've ever talked about that, because did you know that Fred also, when the executive director job was open, I saw him in Washington, D.C., and he tried to recruit me, and he did.
Fred is a great recruiter.
Great recruiter. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. McLaughlin. So as you said, you're a geologist by training, but you have a diverse team that includes the Energy ELK, which you will explain what that stands for, a group that we call them the project specialists, a team. You can explain what that is. And then our 3D visualization center. So can you talk about those different parts of your team and how you moved from a technical role to your current one?
Sure. So I would start out by saying that, all of our programs at SER are very collaborative and cross-cutting, but I oversee these three programs that really cut across our research portfolio. So I'll start with the Energy ELK, or the Energy Engagement Leadership and Careers Program. So this group looks at workforce development at all levels, leadership training, social science research, and this has been a really fun thing for me because it allows me to combine my technical background with my interest in workforce development and education. The second group is our project specialist team. So these are our research administration specialists, and they really help our research team complete proposals, execute on sponsored research, work with entities across campus, seek out funding opportunities, and they also work closely with our financial team on our budgets. So really an essential part of our team here at SER. And then the 3D Viz Center, these are our experts in visualization technology. They work on many things, including application development, and have some new drone-based remote sensing capabilities, which is really exciting. So again, this group works across SER, they work across the UW campus, and they work across Wyoming. So it's been really fun to work with these three groups of people.
Yeah, and it takes a special leader to lead very diverse teams like that, and you've really thrived. And so thank you so much for stepping into that role. And before we kind of flip the script and you get to interview me, I think we want to just spend a moment. You had a really cool experience in Norway, building collaborations around critical mineral supply chains and workforce training. You really spearheaded some of that work. And so can you talk about the highlights from that visit and what you learned? And I should also mention that was a Fulbright award.
Yeah, so I was really fortunate to receive a Fulbright Award to study in Norway for 5 months earlier this year. And my research project was on parallels between Norway and Wyoming and their critical mineral supply chain build-out. My host institution was NORSE, or the Norwegian Research Center. So it's an entity very similar to SER. So, just a few of the similarities that I see between Norway and Wyoming. Norway has an energy-based economy. They're an energy exporter. In the critical minerals space, they have historical mining and some very promising critical mineral prospects. But they're facing a lot of similar challenges in the critical mineral space that we are in Wyoming and in the U.S. Developing unconventional critical mineral resources, feedstock-specific technologies, differing views on how mineral resources are developed or should not be developed, and kind of interacting with stakeholders in that area. And also a similarity in needing workforce for critical minerals across the supply chain. So that was what I was really interested in. And I think there's especially room for collaborating on, development of international leaders in the critical mineral space. And on that note, I am collaborating with two others here at SER, Selena Gerace and Maddie Lewis, on putting together a UW study abroad course for this coming spring. So we're looking forward to taking UW students to Norway to look at those parallels between Norway and Wyoming.
Great. Okay, this is where it gets weird, everyone. So now Erin is going to interview me as we hand off the torch, both of the podcast and the leadership here at the School of Energy Resources. So Erin, you are now the host of this podcast.
All right. Well, I'll say first that I think this is going to be a tough act to follow.
Okay, you should go back and listen to the early episodes then. You'll feel really good, because I was very intimidated and still get nervous to this day. So hard to explain. Okay.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to it, though. I think it'll be fun. And also just would like to say up front, thanks so much to you, Holly, for your leadership and everything you've done for SER and for the state of Wyoming.
Yeah.
So on that note, I want to start by reflecting on your accomplishments, which are many here at SER. What would you consider the most significant accomplishment during your time here?
So that's a great question. I don't think I accomplished very much, but I worked really, really hard to enable others so that they could accomplish a lot. And I think the only thing you can do as a leader is really you can do a few things. And one of them set culture. And something that was really important to me, and that I think fit in with SER's founding statute, is that we needed to be collaborative. The reason the School of Energy Resources was put here at the University of Wyoming was because the state is investing so much in this university. It's only a 4-year research institution in the state. And they wanted something to kind of steer the direction on energy, academics, outreach, and research. And SER definitely had a great foundation when I arrived. But what you've seen is, by just enabling some of the people that were already here and then bringing in a lot of new talent, that we have dramatically increased the number of people working with and for SER. And every single person in some capacity that's working with us or for us is contributing to our mission to advance energy-driven economic development for Wyoming. And so last year, in the last fiscal year, in Wyoming, the School of Energy Resources supported about 320 individuals across the university. So you think about all of a sudden we have over 300 people working in all these different areas to support the state, to educate students, to offer new programs, to like make UW a powerhouse in energy. And that is like the thing I'm most proud of, is just kind of the culture that has allowed that collaboration to expand so significantly that there's no way this team like can be stopped if that continues, you know, like there's going to be success after success. And of course there's bumps in the road. And, you know, I think energy has gotten really political and we'll see that pendulum swinging back and forth. But I just have complete confidence that this team that is in place now and the culture that they have built and are bought into is going to lead to success over the long term. So I think that like, that's the thing I'm most proud of.
Yeah. So to dig a little deeper into the positive work culture here, what specific and intentional steps have you taken to encourage that open communication and positive work culture here?
There's a lot of different things. I mean, I think it has to start with me or whoever's in this role and doing what you can to be approachable, which means, you know, admitting when you make mistakes, trying to laugh about them sometimes, like trying to make the workplace fun, respecting. It's been really important to me to respect people's personal time. So my expectation, that was kind of over the top, was that if you don't need a response from someone, just like use delay send. You know, we're all adults. If you have a lot of work to do and you need to work after hours, then do it. You're a grown up. I'm not in charge of your life, but you don't have to bring everyone else into that. And so, you know, and just recognizing that people have other responsibilities and also kind of intentionally trying to hire folks who would buy into that and respect each other, you know, disagree openly and have good discussions and kind of be willing to contribute to that kind of culture. And I think having a really clear mission also really helps. You know, so just, I know it gets annoying, but like, that's how I start every single presentation everywhere, all the time. What are we trying to do? We're trying to advance energy-driven economic development for Wyoming. And then when someone brings up something that doesn't relate to that, then the question is, should we do this or not? No. And it's really easy. And there's, you know, it's like low drama. That's the other thing. We work really hard to have low drama. People are people and they're going to be people, but But I think we kind of come here and just get our jobs done, and it's fun.
Agreed. So. Yeah, and I have a lot of appreciation for all of those approaches to our positive work culture here.
Yeah. But I think the other thing that we do have also is accountability. So I think one of the things we really tried to work hard on that maybe sometimes in academia it is used and sometimes it's not, is really taking performance reviews seriously. And so that people understand where they are, where they stand, what's expected of them. And also you can have real discussions about how can I help you advance in your career, and understanding that if we can't help you get the career you want here at SER, then it is our responsibility to help you find it somewhere else and get you ready for that next job, even if it's not here, and trying to kind of build that in and having those honest discussions with your folks. So I think that's the other part. And also holding folks accountable to what they're being expected to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, clearly leading SER has been a complex role. So could you also talk a little bit about the biggest challenges that you faced?
Yeah. Well, the biggest challenges, okay, let's see. I started March 9th, 2020, and the university shut down March 11th. So due to COVID, or shut down to in-person service. Now, I will say I never left. I was like the only one rattling around in this building for a while, but I had, this was such a great opportunity for me. It was my first big leadership role, my first team. Now I only met a small portion of the people. I think we had like a very small reception with some desserts, and everyone was spread out around the room, and then everyone was gone, poof. And there were some people who I actually never ended up meeting, and they retired in the time during COVID. So that was a big challenge. Then my first week, also energy prices went negative, and the university, like a lot of state entities, took a budget cut, including School of Energy Resources. We took a 10% budget cut. And so it was kind of like a tough start, but believe it or not, the team was so good that was already in place that I actually feel like that story, looking back on it, sounds terrifying, but I don't know. It was like we didn't even miss a beat. We just were like, oh, okay, we'll work at home. And then you know, like everyone here we just kept going. And it was like it was dramatic, but a non-issue. Mm-hmm. But looking back and telling that story that way, it sounds very scary.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think the transition from industry to academia was a little tough. I think I like SER, and it's the kind of only place I would fit in academia because it is mission driven. That's really important to me. It's not important to everyone. Whereas generally at universities, there's some incredible collaborators, but they are often like individual contributors who are focused on their area of expertise and advancing that. And that probably isn't for me, but I guess the upside of moving to academia and dealing with some of kind of the slower moving parts compared to industry is that but we have these incredible opportunities to move the ball for the state of Wyoming. And so you kind of take the good with the bad on that one.
Right. Yeah. So to kind of continue talking about our collaborations with industries then, I mean, we have varied stakeholders and partners across the state and across the nation. But could you talk a little bit about collaborating specifically with Wyoming's energy industry and our policymakers and, why that's so crucial to our mission?
Yeah, it's core to our mission. It actually is in the founding statute. And so working with industry, I mean, our whole point is to advance the state's energy sector, but the state, we're not, this is the energy sector is run by companies. The state can make regulations, they can be proactive, they can fund us to work on some cutting edge technologies that are specific to Wyoming or some projects specific to Wyoming that are really important to the state. But at the end of the day, industry has to carry those forward. And so, there's very few large and even some medium-sized companies or industry partners that have operations in Wyoming who we're not working with, which is incredible. And I think it's also part of the culture to understand that we're in a lot of ways here to serve them. So what I've seen and what I've observed from this team that I found so motivational is when someone from industry comes in, people at SER are asking questions and they're trying to understand, what can we do to help you? What is a role where an academic institution, even one that we work on a bigger scale than most academics, but what can we do to be of service? And now, SER being established in statute in 2006, fast forward to 2026, the beginning of 2026, there are a lot of examples of things that have happened, technologies that have been used or invented that are directly benefiting the state. And so, but I'll just point to one. We had Don Crank, the GM of Kemmer Mine, and you, Erin, and Davin Bagdonas were sitting there. And I just remember you guys were asking him all these questions about the mine, about potential funding opportunities, about the coal, about potential for rare earths, graphite. And you're just sitting there and listening to him and you were just brainstorming. And it was like, you were trying to find any way you could to help that mine. Mm-hmm. Right. And I don't know if you noticed, but I was sitting there watching the three of you and I was like, so proud because that is exactly why we're here.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the most rewarding parts of my job here is getting to know industry partners across the state, like Don at Kemmerer. So that's been a really great part of my time at SER.
And I think the other thing that is really cool is that by working with industry, it's like, I think people that work at the School of Energy Resources want to see impact in the world and in Wyoming. And so by working with industry, you have this natural handoff. You're like, if this works, you can make it happen. Mm-hmm. And all this, the years of my life that I've put into this, it can be a reality.
Right.
So that's a big part of it.
Yeah, it is. It's very rewarding to actually be doing applied science.
Yeah.
Yep. So to kind of continue talking about our partners and our stakeholders, what steps have you taken to establish stronger ties with Wyoming communities and local governments, kind of to ensure that our research here again is really applied and addressing real world needs?
Yeah. And this, again, I'm going to go back to the founding statute. There's a couple different ways that we're connecting with communities. And one is through the community colleges, right? Like particularly in our energy communities, let's just talk about Gillette College. We have such great ties with them. I know I can pick up the phone and call Gillette College. Same with Western Wyoming Community College. We have great relationships. We've had projects together. We've worked on the Wyoming Innovation Partnership together and helped stand up the lineman program. So that's one way we get into communities. The other, I have to, again, to you and the Energy Elk team, and then that's out in communities doing surveys about Wyoming residents and how they feel about different energy sources. And then our outreach team, which really leverages things like the Science Initiative to get into communities. So I think Christine Reed's leadership there has been really important as we've tried to add back in K through 12 engagement. And, there's just so many different ways. I mean, part of that is trying to recruit students to UW and specifically to SCR, but it's also about, making a coloring book that talks about all the different kinds of energy in Wyoming. And then also, I think we are building projects, maybe not in communities, but near them. And so having engagement with stakeholders in those communities has been really important. So it's all part of the process of innovation and delivering for the state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's another really rewarding part of my job is getting out into the communities and talking with people about our research.
I will say, gosh, you have to bring your A game when you're in a Wyoming community. And talking about energy, they know so much. Landowners know so much. Mm-hmm. I was on a panel put together by Governor Gordon in Sheridan, and one of the topics was just kind of broadly energy, and I just gave my spiel, my SCR, propaganda. And at the end, someone stood up and asked something about the Supreme Court ruling on the Chevron deference. And I was like, are you serious? This is a town hall. And so, I mean, you just have to really know your stuff. And I think we all love that challenge. And we love doing energy in a place where people know what they're talking about.
Yes, it is an energy educated public here. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So, Holly, as you reflect on your time here, is there a moment or an interaction that really reminded you of why you took this job in the first place?
One moment, gosh, there's so many. I've had so many incredible experiences, and it's been really special to be like the kind of face of SCR, even though, again, as a leader, you can't really accomplish very much by yourself. So it was really special. I've had a lot of special experiences. Senator Barrasso invited me to testify at Congress about hydrogen pipelines. That was really special. Being on 60 Minutes was really special. My mom was very excited about that. So that was really fun. I think, though, that at the end of the day, the most rewarding thing is kind of seeing the people here thrive. And in some cases, seeing folks that work here at the School of Energy Resources really perform at a level higher than probably what they thought they could do before they came here. And that's by far the best part. So, yeah, that's it. That's got it. But I mean, there's been a lot of instances of that, so I can't put my finger on one specifically.
Okay. All right, Holly, as we near the end here, I want to talk about transitioning to the future. And as you move into your next chapter, I would just like to know what you're most excited about.
So I have to use a quote from Mandy Fable, the executive director of Leadership Wyoming, and I was in the class of 2022. And she has worked with me in some leadership coaching. And it was actually when we started this podcast, I got so excited and was very invested in a weird way about growing listenership, like more than I should have been, And I was like, Mandy, what is wrong with me? Why am I so into this podcast? And she was like, that's because you're a builder. And, there comes a point when you realize that you've used your ideas or you've kind of taken something maybe not as far as you can take it, but like the most massive changes behind you. And so it was like this moment when she helped me realize like, wow, that's how I feel. Like, I feel like I could continue steering this ship. Like, why not just ride the wave of success, Holly? I guess that's not who I am. But, so I got obsessed with this podcast and trying to grow it, and kind of it was this realization moment for me. And exactly what Mandy said is, Holly, you are a builder, not a sustainer. Like, what gets me going, gets my juices flowing, are like making things new and creating things and trying to have this impact and creating things that weren't there before, or fixing things. Gosh, I love to fix things. That was our good day when we had a problem, because that meant there was something to fix, and there's like less and less problems, it feels like. So what I'm excited about is to build something new. And so going to Williams, is a company that is obviously part of my life. I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's where they're headquartered. I've known Williams my whole life. And even though it's over 100-year-old company, they're doing this incredible. They're forward thinking, they're building, and they're such an important part of the energy sector, not just in Wyoming, but across the nation. And so that's what I'm most excited about, is moving to something new, challenging myself, and being able to contribute in a new way where I can get back to building and fixing.
Okay. Well, I'll say you're very good at fixing things.
Thank you. Relentless.
Yes. And I appreciate that. So how will you carry some of your experiences and knowledge that you gained here into this new position?
Yeah, I think a lot of the leadership skills that I learned, I'm definitely one to be excitable too much. So this is one of the things that I continue to work on. But having seen, all the there have been some roller coasters during my time here at School of Energy Resources, just from changing energy landscape discussion, federal funding, just you name it. And trying to, when you look back, it doesn't look that bumpy, but when you're in it, it feels really turbulent. And so hopefully I can remember, if you look at what has been accomplished in the last 5.5, almost 6 years since I've been at School of Energy Resources, when I look back, I don't see the turbulence, and I'm just hoping at some point in my life, I'll be able to implement that in the moment. That would be the best thing that could happen. I don't know if it's realistic or not, but that would be my goal.
Okay. So if you could go back to the day you accepted this position, what's a piece of advice that you would give your previous self about leading this organization?
Great question. So it's funny because, like I mentioned, Fred had kind of told me about this role, and actually I think Richard Horner did as well, but I had no idea actually what SER was. I knew the Center for Economic Geology Research. I knew them. They're known nationally and internationally. And actually now I think there's a lot of parts of SER that are both nationally and internationally known, both through the work of the teams and then our outreach team. But I guess I had no idea how broad SER already was and then would become. I studied the academic program, but that's something we haven't talked about that maybe I could just divert into for a minute. So when I first got here, we did a little survey of the academic program, which needed fixing. There were 2 incoming students. And I was like, why are we doing this? Why would you have an undergraduate degree that no one wants to take? Well, we weren't marketing it effectively. And so we did a kind of an internal audit of that program. And John Kazuba, who's an SER faculty member in geology and geophysics, I will never forget, he said, I don't know what SER's academic program should be, but it should be bigger than this and broader than this, and it should impact more students than just our undergrads. And so we've lived that, and today SER is serving more students than it ever has before in its history. I think we're at 99 students. So, and the way we've been doing that is offering all these new credentials that can be of interest to students that are not just taking our single undergrad degree. And I have to give tons of credit to Cami Danae, who's really led all that growth. And really what we've built is a foundation where that growth, I think, is just going to continue long into the future. But my point is, I didn't realize day one, like, how important that academic program could be and how incredible the interaction with the students could be. They're the best. I will tell you, if you spend time with some of the SER students in our program, they're so open-minded about energy and they're so thoughtful and they clearly want to learn. And sometimes they have a preference for like one type of energy over another, but they're all interested in all of it and they're very open-minded and they're super impressive. So if you're worried about the future generation, you should come talk to our students. They're going to give you just lots of good feelings about the future. But anyway, so I would just, I guess, advise myself to look at the whole of SER, or maybe I wish I would have come in realizing how rich all the parts of SER were from day one. And now I certainly do, but I hope the next person coming in will realize just how important, even our financial team that provides all that support and the transparency for the public dollars and our outreach team, 3D Vis Center, the academic team, like it's just a really rich community of passionate people.
Yeah, agreed. It's such a great team here, and also agreed on the growth in the academic program. I mean, that's been really impressive. Mm-hmm. And I would also add, for me, it's been a real privilege to work with graduate students on our research projects.
Good
too.
point. Yeah. I think we're funding about 90 across the university to just work on different Wyoming-related energy topics, and I think that's part of the great model. So good point on the grad students too.
Yeah. So as you step away, what's the single most important piece of advice or encouragement that you have for us, the staff and the faculty and the students of SER?
I think there's no stopping SER or Wyoming when it comes to energy. If we as a state fail on energy, it's because we as a state failed on energy. Like, we have it all, we can do it all, we can do it all well. And I think the fact that we're so small and the public is so energy literate, the future is Wyoming's to win. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be very competitive. But I guess I would just say, in terms of advice, that this is a great place to be in energy. I think it's one of the best places. I think it's the best place to demonstrate novel energy technologies. And you don't have to take my word for it. Obviously, TerraPower believes it and others that are building in the state. And so I think for students, I'd say come to SER. And if you want to stay in Wyoming, I think you can build a career here. For the folks that faculty, staff, and students across the university, I think the future is ours to win. And honestly, I just think keep doing what you're doing.
All right. Well, we'll keep that in mind. So looking ahead here, what do you think the greatest opportunity for the state of Wyoming is to solidify and to continue to solidify our place in the broader energy economy?
I think two things. I mean, first of all the work that not just SER, the Geologic Survey, others have been doing over the years. We have so much information about Wyoming that we're really set up for success in a lot of ways if we choose to leverage all of that. I think energy is really different than it was a year ago. And it's been so stagnant. Consumption, particularly of electricity, has been really stagnant. And that makes it hard to demonstrate new technologies, right? There's no room in the system to try new stuff, to add new things. Well, that's done. There's with data centers and AI, I think that's a huge opportunity for Wyoming. It doesn't mean that they all need to be placed here, because Wyoming energy is used all over the nation. And so we have some real opportunities to, now that energy demand is increasing, to leverage that and make Wyoming a place that's great for investing in new energy technologies and new data centers, and then also help our energy customers. If they want to add carbon capture and storage, we have some world-class expertise here. And if it's going to help Wyoming energy to continue to be used long into the future, we can be a part of that. So I think that it's actually such an exciting time in the energy sector because of that growth, and because there's essentially a race to build AI, both around the nation, but really internationally, that Wyoming can play a big part in that. And I think it's a huge opportunity.
Yep. It's exciting times. Well, Holly, as we conclude this Passing of the Torch podcast, I just want to say thank you again, for all of your thoughtful and really capable leadership of SER. You will truly be missed. And I also wish you the best of luck in your new endeavors.
Thank you, Erin.
And in keeping with tradition, we will continue to close the podcast with a question that highlights just how fortunate we all are to live in Wyoming. So, Holly, where's your favorite place to visit in the great state of Wyoming?
Okay, so that's a really great question, Erin. I've watched people struggle with this for the last year and a half. One of my best experiences in Wyoming is definitely at the polo fields near Sheridan. Just at the base of the Bighorns. I went there for my birthday one year and was kind of looking around. I was like, this might be the most beautiful place I've ever been. But then there's Alcova and, the Snowies. And I'm going to channel Caleb Hill, who is been working with us on nuclear energy and building up that capacity. And when he was on this podcast, he basically said his favorite place in Wyoming was his house. And it's not my house, but really, truly at the end of the day, you can't beat Laramie. This has been like the most welcoming community. It's like even during COVID, we moved here and I had friends, and it's just like a really supportive, welcoming community. It's safe. It's very windy. I'm very tired because it was so windy last night that I couldn't sleep. But in general, people really band together, and I'm just really grateful that my family and I were able to land here, and I'm grateful that we get to stay here.
All right. Well, we will end on that sentiment that you can't beat Laramie. So thank you, Holly.
Okay. Thanks, Erin.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Energy Frontier, the Wyoming Landscape, the podcast that highlights the School of Energy Resources at the University of Wyoming. You can expect a new episode of Energy Frontier every other Wednesday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. See you next time.